Our healthcare system is really challenged in terms of how many needs it tries to meet, how much we ask of it, and by extension, how much we ask of each other, because we are all, at one time or another, patients of that system as well. Sometimes some of us work for that system. A lot of times, most of us are supporting that system by helping provide care for each other. So the idea of how do we steward this so that we are all working together in a way that is really supportive and is a wise and thoughtful use of our resources has been really front and center to me this whole time. So the project for Advancing Healthcare Stewardship gives us a platform to really try to explore some of these ideas, think about how might we do things different? How might things be different if we relate to each other and to the system differently? And it's a hope that it will open up space to really have some interesting and deep and thoughtful and sometimes even challenging conversations to help answer some of these questions. Imagining a different way for a system to function, right? What are the places that we could actually do something today or maybe tomorrow, even while we might be imagining some kind of grand redesign of it? This is really about building a community of people, each of which are bringing something unique, whether it's a perspective or a skill set or just passion or even just energy to help people move along towards creating something that is grounded in day-to-day actions and that supports one another in wanting to see oneself as a steward and imagine what those actions might be.
In its traditional sense, is a form of education that was developed by Rita Sharon, who's at Columbia University. Actually, what Sharon was interested in, the way in which the medical humanities, and in particular story, could be a useful tool for people who are training to be medical providers to access that other side of caregiving. So it's not about, the biomarkers, the ruling out of this condition or that condition, but it's really more about connecting on a deeper level with that human being who is living as we all are, making sense of his or her life and their experience through narrative. So that's, where the term narrative medicine comes from. It involves looking at stories, different kinds of readings, a poem or a short essay or a short story, seeing more intricately into sort of what the story is made of, how the writer wrote it, what's the voice or tone of the story, how was it put together and why, and how did those decisions affect what's happening on the page and then what happens to us when we read it. The study of narrative medicine can facilitate and nurture these deeper skills of listening beyond, what might be immediately obvious. I think it's important to distinguish that what we're doing in our forums isn't formally the practice of narrative medicine, a less formal way than would be practiced in a traditional narrative medicine program. In fact, some of our steering committee members have proposed that we use the term narrative wellness instead of medicine. And so the idea being that it's a bit broader and a bit more encompassing and a bit less exclusionary as well, because wellness really is available to everyone. What we're doing in the PAHS forums, and in particular the narrative wellness component, as a potential tool for healthcare stewardship and moving, in at least some small way, our healthcare system forward to be more equitable, accessible, and functional for all of us. I would think it's important to remember what Margaret Mead said, which probably many are familiar with this quote, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has, is what she told us. And I think that aligns with the work of Adrienne Marie Brown with Emergent Strategy, which tells us that we can work in ways that are an inch wide but a mile deep. And that's what our aim is with PAHS, through these very meaningful and intimate public forums. People come in not really knowing what to expect and leave after a couple of hours a bit stunned by how far we could get in such a short time. Definitely don't have to be a writer to participate in the forums. Narrative medicine, or as we practice it, narrative wellness, does involve writing. So everyone is invited during the forums to respond to the reading that we've done together and talked about together, to respond to a writing prompt that's given, a structured writing exercise. Our aim is not to produce literature, although I have to say some of the work that has come out of the forums has been stunning, because it's really coming from a very fresh, engaged place and being influenced by the voices of so many people, in the small group. So it's been very moving. To cap that up, I would just want to say actually that it's really important to underscore that you don't need to be a writer any more than you need to be a doctor, a nurse, a researcher, an academic, or associated with the healthcare system in any way. We all can engage in this work, and that story is how we make sense of who we are in the world. And it's how we make sense of these really intractable problems like the healthcare system. Through just engaging on that really shared human level of story is where we can actually get a little traction, because we can all meet in that place.
Helplessness is waiting on a lab result.
Helplessness is your daughter catching a moth, releasing it, catching it again, until the moth's wing comes just a little bit loose and the moth half flutters, and your daughter, who loves animals and just wanted to touch the little white moth, cries.
Helplessness is your breakfast getting cold, just out of reach.
Lost in the forest and screaming and nobody can hear you.
Thinking helplessness is a thistle with thorns and flowers.
To me, helplessness is when your mind and your body are no longer equally matched dancing partners.
Losing a loved one.
Helplessness is a raptor with a broken wing.
Not being able to comfort a loved one.
Helplessness is a rude reminder of the limits of our humanity.
Of cultivating care, courage.
Kind of giving voices to people within those communities.
Story sharing.
Love.
Listening and mutual respect.
Sharing our knowledge.
Assertiveness.
Understanding culture and health equity.
Ownership.
Is patience.
Curiosity. An active participant in this steering.
It's like a sacred cyber campfire.
Just a brief comment. I'm obviously of the older generation, and I have a number of friends who are confined to home and even having a final illness. And especially the first class we had here gave me such an impetus to listen to them and to ask them in much more specific detail about their lives. And even though it's sometimes tedious to sit and listen to long towards stories, and it really has been a wonderful gift to me to have a focus of something to do for what could be a difficult encounter, which becomes a very wonderful conversation when you look at it from that way. So thank you very much.
The universality of common experience and connection with other human beings.